The video is something I want to have a faff around with. So if I'm having a faff around with something, I might as well film it. And then if anything interesting happens, or anything non-interesting, is some non-interesting, not interesting, don't know which way, non-interesting, not interesting happens, then we'll kind of have documented it. So I wanted to make I was thinking about stock cubes, like a chicken stock cube or a vegetable stock cube. I'm not really a fan of vegetable stock cubes. I just think that everything ends up tasting a vegetable stock cube, whereas opposed to something like a chicken stock cube, it's quite it's not overpowering a chicken stock cube. But then I was thinking about things like Marmite and Vegemite and yeast extract. I was kind of thinking about those, and I was kind of thinking that lots of like umami flavored things are where am I going with this? Sometimes they can be a little bit too salty, so you have to limit what you can use them for because of the saltiness in them. So you can't put too much. You couldn't put too much Marmite in something because it'll start to taste really kind of salty. And things like I've got some somewhere. It's like some Pat and Perium, which is like an anchovy type of butter. No, I don't think I did have some. It'll be somewhere in the cupboards. But things like yeast extract, it can be a little bit too salty, and stock cubes can be a little bit too salty. So I kind of thought, can we make something that's a little bit like a stock cube, that's not overly salty or overly kind of vinegary? Can we make something that kind of gives a boost of flavour that potentially we could also use as a spread as well? So I made a like a brown sauce substitute, and it's kind of quite nice, but you don't but it's vinegary because you put vinegar in to kind of preserve it. Can we not put as much vinegar and salt and things and still get those kind of flavours? I'm not making much sense, I realise this, but anyway. So I want to make some kind of paste, stock cube, and not be meaty either. So it's kind of going to be vegan out of default. And that was it. And then to be able to add like and that was my other thought as well. So like I think vegan food is kind of quite vegetarian vegan food is kind of quite difficult because getting flavour into things, especially if you're not going to use things like butter and animal products, you kind of struggle to get like real kind of flavours into things. I mean, although you can use things like I picked up some tamarind and I picked up some miso paste. So they're kind of like umami type things. That's well past its sell by date, but we'll open it anyway. Wow, that's really past its sell by date. That's like 8 years past its sell by date. It'll probably still be fine. It won't kill us. But anyway, so I have made some different umami types of things. I made some that's stock, isn't it? Yeah, so that's a brown vegetable stock. So I roast vegetables, some carrots, some onion and some celery, and then made a stock out of it. So that's a roast vegetable stock, and then I've made a celery stock, which is that one, and I've reduced that as well. And then I made a carrot stock, which was just carrot peelings, and we reduced that as well to kind of intensify it. And then I've made a mushroom stock as well, so that's that one at the back. And then I've got some tomato essence, which is basically the liquid from tomatoes. So you just kind of puree it, freeze them, and then squeeze it through a cloth, and you end up with that clear kind of liquid. And then I've got some caramelized onions, which I cooked down without any oil, just in a pan with a little bit of salt, just to kind of intensify the kind of flavour, so the kind of sweetness. And that was another thought as well. I didn't want to make things too sweet either, because the danger is with onions is that's going to be too sweet. So we kind of need to balance that with different kind of flavours as well. Because I wanted savoury, but I didn't want too sweet. I didn't want too salty. I didn't want too vinegary. So my idea is that what we'll do is we'll use the caramelised onions as a base. We'll puree those down with these umami kind of flavours, and maybe add some miso and maybe some tamarind, and we'll kind of see what happens. But I need to kind of taste what the stocks, the 5 stocks, taste like together. So that's a lovely colour, is that vegetable stock. remember which spoons are which. So that's gone a little bit, so there's pectin in celery, in a slight amount of pectin. So when you make a celery stock, it goes gelatinous. I don't know if you can see that. So I want a teaspoon of that. I'll leave that in there, and I want a teaspoon of the carrot stock, which will just be actually carrot peelings, I think, and then mushroom stock. I thought about using, I'd made some mushroom ketchup, but it's quite salty mushroom ketchup, and that's not what I wanted, so we're going to stay away from the kind of salt idea kind of thing. That can live in there. We're not going to lose those, are we? No, that'll be fine. We're not going to lose that either. So then we know which one's which. So swish round, and then give it a taste, see how they taste all together. I think that'll work. I think that'll work, but I think we'll need to intensify things. Maybe not so much of the tomato, because the tomato's been a little bit overpowering. So let's do one without the tomato in. I still have a little bit of tomato left in the glass, but I don't want it to be too tomatoey either. I don't want it just to be, I want it to be intense, but not kind of like over the top. I mean, it's not going to be a cheap thing. It's going to be quite expensive to make, it's this, but and faffy. But you know, aren't most of my things that I do. That's nice without a tomato. That's nice without a tomato. So let's do half those onions. Cook it down in a pan and add some of those to it and cook it down and see how we go. And then let's have a taste of the miso. Stick my finger in it, fine. A bit salty. A bit salty. What's the tamarind taste? See, those are going to give like a massive kind of hit of flavour. But how does this taste? Might be a little bit too intense. So we'll take half that and we'll add some of those to it. We'll cook it down. We'll give it a taste. We'll see how it turns out. Right, so I put in half those onions. So I suppose there was about 2 onions, not 2 onions, about 2 kilos worth of onions that got cooked down to that. And then I put in 2 tablespoons each of those, 2 dessert spoons of each of those stocks, apart from the tomato, which I think I'm going to leave out because it's just going to change everything tomatoey. That's my thoughts anyway. So how's that taste? All the flavours are lost in the onions, so it needs a lot more stock, and then we need to reduce it down to kind of intensify flavours. Because otherwise it's just going to be oniony, and that's not what sweet oniony. I don't want it to be sweet oniony. So it certainly needs a lot more stocks amount in there, and then we need to cook it down. So probably talking, what do I reckon? So that would be 6. No, that'd be 4. That'd be 4. That'd be 5. That'd be 6. I think 6 of each. 6 of each. Cook it down. Taste it again. Right. So it's come up to temperature. Reduce it down. So it's. I will puree it, but if I puree it now and trying to reduce it, it's going to start sticking to the bottom of the pan. So it's better to add all the wet ingredients to it and then reduce it down. So how does it taste? Certainly needs more stock and things in it. So for the amount of ratio. So we'll go with the same amount again. We'll go with, well, it depends how much we've got left. So let's so that's another, we'll do another 4 of each, but I want to get away from the I want to get away from the taste of sweet onions. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we'll carry on going. We might have to balance it with a little bit of salt, but I don't really want to do that. But we'll carry on. We'll add the other stocks as well, reduce it down, and then we'll taste again. It's cooked down some more. Let's give it a taste. It smells pretty amazing, actually. Pretty amazing. Right. It's losing the oniony flavour, but we need to go. We need to do more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. So we'll do another 4 of each. I think the more of this vegetable stock, the roast vegetable stock, is that 3 or 4? I don't think it's really going to matter. That's probably 5, but as long as we're in the realms of something close. Yeah, so I think probably the mushroom stock and the roast vegetable stock are the ones that are going to be the most dominant flavours and important. But so I always kind of say this about cooking. Cooking generally is not just one major thing that you do to a dish. So like adding a really good quality red wine will improve its flavour, but it's generally what's going to improve a dish more is 10 little things you do. You know, it's the good quality red wine, it's the tasting of the salt, it's the caramelization of vegetables, it's the little things that you do to dishes that vastly improve the flavour of them. Well, not vastly improve the flavour, but you're building a kind of like flavour rather than just adding one thing which will dramatically improve the flavour of something. The only thing that really does that, but intense and then kind of goes to nothing, is MSG, monosodium glutamate. So that will give you a sudden burst of flavour in a dish, but then it quickly goes away. So one of the lads that I worked with, they used to go into it's peppercorn. I wonder what that was. He used to do chef competitions. So kind of it's not particularly done anymore, but like when you turn vegetables, when you cut vegetables into barrel shapes and do on a basic level is when you turn a tomato into a rose, that type of thing. He did those kind of competitions when he worked at a certain restaurant, and they used to if you wanted to give like so let me just kind of think about this. So they were under time constraints, so allowed a certain amount of time. Like watching MasterChef these days, they kind of like have like a certain amount of time to do a kind of certain dish. In these competitions, my friend Steve said that they were allowed a certain amount of time, and he says it was impossible to take a stock that was a non-reduced stock and reduce that stock down to intensify its flavour and to make a sauce in the allotted amount of time. He says, so what we used to do, he says, we used to cheat. We used to have a little pot of MSG that we would add to dishes to intensify that kind of flavour, and then to kind of cheat. Told me how they did it as well. So what they used to do is, back in the good old days when you had a film for your actual camera, you used to come in a little plastic container, and they used to put the MSG in the plastic container with the lid on, and then have it on the side with our equipment. And no one was going to open that container of film, because they did say, oh well, it's a container of film because we're going to take some pictures. So the person judge wouldn't want to open the container and see what was inside, because there was film in there and it would ruin the film because it would expose it to the light. So that's how they used to kind of get around it. But I don't think they do those competitions much as anymore. They probably still do, but it's probably like a real kind of quite subset of, I think is that the right word? A really kind of quite small thing. I don't think they do it in the same type of way. But anyway, so a little bit off track as always. But anyway, so reduce it down and we'll see how it tastes. So we have reduced it down again. It's the onions that are swelling up, so we are reducing the juice. How does it taste? Okay, that's more interesting. Let's put a little bit of this tomato essence in. Not much. Just a put a couple of them. Let's taste it. I want to get away from the sweetness, but I don't want to add. If I feel I'm going to add miso or tamarind, I'm just going to feel like I'm cheating. I want to do something from scratch. That's really what I want to do. Okay, we can get rid of. We can get rid of. We can get away with a couple more, and not make it too tomatoey. Right, so we'll cook that down, and we'll kind of see what happens. But very intense. But right, we'll carry on. Right, so that's pretty intense. You would never know there wasn't any meat in that. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to puree it and put it through a sieve so it's fine. So we'll kind of see how that turns out. But really, what we should do is we should mix a little bit of it with some miso, just out of interest. Let's put a little bit of miso in there. But I don't really want to do that. I don't want to just buy things. I want to actually make something. So half that amount of miso, just a little bit. Mix that around, see how it tastes. How does it taste compared to that? Tell the miso's in there. It's kind of cut the sweetness of the onions. I prefer that though. But we'll add that into there, so we're not going to waste it. So we'll puree that and put it through a sieve so it's nice and smooth. We'll let it go cold and we'll give it another taste. And I think what I'm going to do is we'll take these bits of stocks and reduce them down to make like a more intense kind of flavoured stock, and then we'll be able to taste that without the onions in it, won't we? Yes. And then if we don't like it, we can always add those onions to it and add it all together and kind of not waste anything, can't we? Yes, that's what we'll do. So we've had a play around. Let's just take that off the heat. I have pureed it and I've put it through a sieve so it's smoother. And then we just heated it back up in a pan. So I wanted to taste it warm, and then we've reduced it down a little bit, made it a little bit thicker. But that's what it looks like when it's cold. So it's gone a little bit like ketchup or catsup, whatever you want to kind of call it, but like a black bean sauce type of consistency, or a brown sauce type of thing. But not brown sauce as in stocks and sauces. I like brown sauce as in brown sauce you get in the UK. It's nice. It's nice. I think if we added some salt to that, we'd get like a Marmite kind of thing going on. But I don't want to kind of over salt it. But we will season that. See how that tastes. And then I took all the stocks that I got left apart from the tomato stock, well, the tomato essence, and we've reduced them down in the pan. So how does that taste? Really kind of quite intense. Probably could do with seasoning as well. And then I also took some of, not that, but that, before we heated it up, and I put it on a piece of baking parchment, and there's only me, and I've just dried it out, so it's kind of gone like a thicker paste even more. So let's just get a bit of that off. It's just been next to the cooker, so it almost dried into a sheet, but could just do with heating up slightly. But it's gone like that. We need a bit more. But if I just dried it out a little bit more, it's just because I've been heating that up in the kitchen, this has been next to it, it's just absorbed some of the moisture, so it's gone a little bit tacky. So, but it would have come off in a sheet. So, how does that taste? Quite intense. Probably could have done with. They could all do with seasoning. They could all do with seasoning, which is not something I really wanted to do. I just wanted to kind of get to intensify flavours. Now, what we can do is we can just add a bit of lemon juice, which just adding a bit of acid to things just kind of lifts flavours. So let's just put a few drops of lemon juice in that. So if you're making sauces in a professional kitchen or at home, if you've got the ability and you fancy having a go, what you can do with sauces, just at the very end, you can add a little bit of lemon juice, and what that does, that just improves the flavour. See, that's better for a bit of lemon juice in that. It needs a little bit more. I forgot all about that technique. I don't do these type of things anymore. I don't work in I cook for 100 people, but they all have the same food. Whereas I used to work in restaurants where we'd do more than 100 people and everyone wanted something completely different. But anyway, so I'm using the same spoon, but it's fine. See, that's intensified that flavour. That's intensified that flavour without adding any salt. So let's put some lemon juice in this. See what kind of happens. Now, I don't want to add vinegar. I don't know what it is. I mean, they're both an acid, but adding vinegar to things just isn't the same as adding lemon juice, and it's probably down to the freshness of the taste of the lemon. So mix that around, and then we'll use a fresh spoon. I'll make more water, and we'll give that a taste and what we think. See, that's intensified the flavour. Right, let's add some salt. A bit went in there, but it'll be fine. So it's free running salt. Not too much, because I don't want it overly salty. And then we'll put a little bit of salt in there. So, the only danger with using, I much prefer to use rock salts and sea salts in things, but they take a little longer to melt when you add them to things. So, what you can do is you can mistakenly add some rock salt or sea salt or something, it not melt properly, and then you taste it before everything's been, the salt's properly melted, and you get these patches of some of it being under seasoned and some of it being over seasoned. So you kind of have to wait a little while after you've seasoned. But even in the case of using free running salt, you know that there's always the danger of that happening as well. One of my sous chefs used to tell a funny story about one of our bosses about that. So yeah, let's season it up to a what we call like a Marmite kind of flavour type of level. Because I don't know if I said at the start of the video, I kind of think collecting yeast or getting your hands on yeast can be kind of quite difficult. I mean, when I was making Marmite, I had lots of the fermentation projects from my summer, so I just saved all the yeast that I collected in the bottom of cider and all the different types of things, and then I used that, but you can't always buy it. Do you know, that's not dissimilar. That's in the palate range of, or in the taste range of like concentrates like Marmite and like Bovril as well. And I was kind of thinking about Bovril, like it's a concentrated beef stock, but I couldn't think about how to make it, because if we're going to make it from meat, there's going to be the problem of the stock being gelatinous. So how could we get past that gelatinous? Well, as it cooled, it would set like a really hard jelly, whereas bottle's more like a paste. See, that's vastly improved, just a little bit of salt. So, what are my thoughts? Right, so we'll taste again, because now we know that the salt will have probably mixed in that. And we'll wash that spoon quickly. And then this will probably be the end of the video. So, it's very umami. Yeah, I mean, it's not. So I've got the miso and the tamarind. So, how do these taste? I'm going to stick my finger in. Tamarind is really sharp, but fruity. And we'll just use the other end of that spoon. And then the miso. It's really salty. That's really salty. If I'm honest, I think that's nicer than the miso. But it's kind of what I wasn't aiming to make a miso, was I? I wasn't aiming to make a miso substitute. I just kind of wanted like an umami type of flavour that we could add to dishes to improve them. Which is what that is. You know, like more salt, and that would be like an umami kind of spread, wouldn't it? Yeah, like a yeast extract. So let's just give this a little bit of try. That's yeast extract. That's some Lidl. That was some Lidl. I've got some proper Marmite hiding in the back of the cupboard. Let's take proper Marmite. End of the spoon will be fine. You see the consistency of Marmite. It is delicious stuff. But you know, it's not out the realms of these type of things which are really rich in umami flavours. So, what I'm going to do, make a really long video. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to combine that and that and that, and I'm going to salt it, and we're going to have some toast tomorrow when I come home. Oh, I need to get some soup out of the freezer. So I'll have some soup tomorrow, and we'll have some toast, and we'll have that spread on toast like we would with yeast extract or Marmite, and see how it kind of tastes. But I think it's kind of what I was aiming for, but I didn't. But I don't think we can get away with the salt element of it. But anyway, so we'll have some toast tomorrow. Combine those. We'll season up because it'll taste different when it's cold. So yeah, that's what we'll do. Bit more lemon juice. It's not going to be a recipe for this. It's just me faffing around, isn't it? But there we go. Yes, that's what we'll do. So let's give this a taste and wrap this video up quickly. Probably not. So I took all the ingredients and I added them all together, pured it, put it through a sieve, added more lemon juice, and I've really kind of quite seasoned it. So in the end, I've kind of made a fake yeast extract Marmite. So that's the consistency of it. So that looks pretty good, does that? Obviously it's been in the fridge, so it would be a different consistency if it was just at room temperature. But there's not a. I'm concerned that there's not a lot of kind of things in there to preserve it. Quite a lot of salt, but there's not so much vinegar, so I think it probably needs to stay in the fridge. How's it taste? It's pretty good, is that? That's pretty good. So we'll do a comparison. I fried some bread because I'm that way out today. Just that way out. Right, so thin smearing, like you would do with Marmite, and just or yeast extract, whatever you want to call it, Vegemite or Bovril. That kind of amount. So it's not shiny like the yeast extract is. See, shiny, not so shiny, but let's see how it tastes. You know, that's lovely on toast. That's lovely. I probably could have even leaned even more with the salt. How is this yeast extract one taste? A bit more on the bit that I'm gonna eat. You can taste the yeast extract. You can taste the yeast in it, but the fruity vegetableness is there in that one. And because I made a roast vegetable stock, we get that roast flavour kind of coming through as well. So there's that kind of flavour kind of going on, which not that dissimilar from the yeasty. It kind of gives that same type of flavour. So wrapping up quickly, my thoughts are, I'm going to do this again and I'll do a proper recipe. I don't think I need to make a separate celery or carrot stock. I think mind you, will a roast vegetable, the roast part of the stock might be too intense. So if we so I used 2 bunches of celery, one in the roast vegetable stock and one to make a celery stock. If we were to use all that celery and all those carrots and all those onions in a roast vegetable stock, it might be a little bit too roast flavour wise. So I think we might need to make a roast vegetable stock, a vegetable stock which is just unroasted, just boiled up vegetables, pureed and then strained, and then we need to make a mushroom stock and then caramelize some onions and then combine it all together. Now this is probably just for me, but well, you think to yourself, well, why don't you just roast half the vegetables, add those to the other vegetables, and then put the mushrooms in with that and just create one stock? The only problem with that is that you tend to lose flavours. So we would lose mushroom flavour, we would lose roast vegetable flavour, we would lose other vegetable flavours to each of the ingredients. So we wouldn't get a more intense stock. Much better to make 3 separate stocks, reduce them down separately, and then add them together, and then we're not losing flavours through the vegetables that we then remove from the stocks, if that kind of makes sense. So if you're making a white wine sauce, like a fish white wine sauce, you would reduce down separately the cream, then another pan you'd reduce down the white wine, and then another pan you reduce down the fish stock, and then you combine them all together and you get a much nicer sauce. So that's kind of what we'll do, and I'll remake it again, but that is particularly good, is that? It's kind of got that richness. It's almost bumping on a brown sauce stroke sandwich pickle type of thing. So like I forgot the name of the company, is like a chutney, but like a British style chutney. It's got that type of flavour to it without the vinegar. So I'll kind of cobble together a recipe for the description, but it won't make much sense. I'll have to do another video making it from scratch, but interesting from my point of view, probably not for anyone else's. And